Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us here today for the Spirit Anchor YouTube video series and the Anchor.fm podcast series. My name is Kristen Schmidt-Dykes, and I'm so excited that you've joined us. We have a very special guest today, Wolter Van Verschuer. He is a minister and teacher for A Course in Miracles. Hi, Wolter. Thanks so much for joining us here today.
Hi, thank you for having me, Kristen. Thank you.
I was hoping that you could tell our listeners and our viewers a little bit about your background, who you are, and what you do.
Well, as you say, I'm a teacher of A Course in Miracles, and my background is actually I'm from Holland, and I'm trained as a lawyer. A long time ago, and at some point I came across A Course in Miracles, and that meant a dramatic shift in everything that happened to me. So. I could tell you a little bit about the story. I was a lawyer, and I was already looking, I must say, at some spiritual stuff at the time. It was in 1988 or something. I did some workshop on self-improvement and that sort of thing. And that's just also how I met my wife. And at some point, my wife had just came back from India. She was with Sai Baba at the time, and we thought we were going to have a career with Sai Baba, but that didn't pan out. And at some point, my wife was sort of looking everywhere, and I was working. I was a corporate lawyer, and one day I was in the office, and my wife called and said, "Hey, I'm here at some guy, and I discovered A Course in Miracles," and I said, "Well, that sounds fun. I'm always always interested in some form of magic, so I thought that sounds good." And so when I came home, she had this green book. It was green at the time. It was the first Penguin edition, and it was A Course in Miracles, and we started looking at it, and we started reading a little bit in it. We had no idea what it said, literally zero idea what it said, but it was very obvious to us that we started that there was something there, and it was very obvious. And so we immediately, that was actually the first thing that we did. We started to do the workbook of A Course in Miracles. We had no idea that there was a whole world behind this book at the time, but we just maybe intuitively, I don't know, we started with lesson number 1. And the problem was, of course, we had one book, so we had to run to the bookstore to get another copy. So we both had our own copy, and this is how it actually started. That we started to do the workbook lessons on a day-to-day basis, and we began to read the text, sometimes together, sometimes alone, and began to discover the amazing reasoning argument that A Course in Miracles is presenting us with towards a new way to think, a new way to see. So what happened next? So we were doing A Course in Miracles. We were doing the workbook for a year, and about a year, and so gradually we came. I don't think the internet was so much around at the time, but we discovered that there was a whole world behind A Course in Miracles. That actually there were a lot of people practicing it. There were groups everywhere. Even in Holland, there were teachers around who were sort of beginning to teach it. And at some point, my wife, was always my wife because she frankly was my guide in this whole thing, she discovered somebody who had written that there was a place here in the United States, in Wisconsin, which was called the Highway to Heaven. And she said, that's where we have to go. And so I took off a month from work, and so it turned out, and I won't go into it that deep, but we discovered that here in Wisconsin there was the master teacher of it was an awakened mind who was actually teaching A Course in Miracles in a not in a different way, but in a completely awakened way.
Okay.
And we recognized immediately that that was of major importance, and we immediately recognized that we should be there. And to make a long story short, from one thing led to another, and at some point I decided I would not be a lawyer anymore, but that this would be the only thing I do. And so it is. We've came to the United States. The organization was called at the time Endeavor Academy. Was an academy of people from all over the world who flocked and gathered around this master, this teacher of teachers, actually, because he has taught us to teach. That was his function, that was his purpose, to be here. And we came, and the people from all over the world gathered around him to drink this message and to practice, to learn the practicing, and to experience the offerings of A Course in Miracles in the most profound way possible. And that's actually okay. That's my story, and I'm teaching and practicing A Course in Miracles. I couldn't say it's not a fixed thing. I think that anybody who has done this for a while recognizes that it's a fluent thing. It changes every day. Every day is a new moment in which, if you pick up the Course and you have it in your hand, you start from zero, and you have new insights, new revelations, and so it is with me. So it is with all the teachers. I'm almost certain that all of the teachers who are now spreading out in the world, we are now that's A Course in Miracles International was the gathering that formulated here in Wisconsin, and now is the physical presence has developed and evolved into an online presence. And a lot of the people who were trained and with the master teacher at the time have now spread out all over the world and are teaching in their own specific way what they have learned and what they're learning.
Yeah. No, it's, for me, like you, I came across A Course in Miracles and really had no insight to what the context was behind it. And it made sense to me pretty quickly who was literally being channeled in these messages. But for the people out there that don't necessarily know the genesis or how A Course in Miracles came to be, it was first published in 1976. But it's the author, Helen Schucman, started channeling and writing this in 1965. Do you know much about her and the context of how she started writing A Course in Miracles? And if you wouldn't mind just telling us a little bit about how that manifested and then was actually published?
Yeah, well, whether Helen Schucman is the author of A Course in Miracles is a much debated question. Mm-hmm. There are schools of thought about that, but let's keep it at that. Helen Schucman was the scribe of A Course in Miracles.
Scriber, that's a great way to put it.
And whether Jesus, for a lot of us, Jesus is obviously the author of the Course in Miracles. Others don't want to go as far, but that's fine. The genesis of A Course in Miracles is well documented. I have here the book called Absence from Felicity by Ken Wapnick, which is a very recommendable read if you're interested to read the background of A Course in Miracles. The genesis, you could say, is she was a clinical psychologist in New York. And she was working with a colleague called Bill Thetford. And Bill Thetford they were working in a university, in an environment with people, and it was a very, according to what they said, a very negative environment, and they looked at each other in the wrong way, and it didn't flow at all. And so at some point, Bill Thetford apparently uttered the famous words, now, there must be another way, there must be a better way. And on the heels of that, and there's a whole story behind it, what happened to Helen, all the metaphysical stuff, there's all sorts of physical stuff that happened to her, dreams and visions and that sort of thing. At some point, there was a point where she said, Bill, I have to tell you something is happening to me. I don't know what it is, but I'm hearing this voice, and it's telling me, this is A Course in Miracles, please take notes. And I don't know what to do. And she was actually, Helen Schucman, throughout the whole process, was actually very much afraid of what she was hearing. She was not, as you would say, very happy to hear what she was hearing. The contrary, she was actually, I think she did everything in her power to but somewhere she recognized that there was a relationship with the voice and with Jesus as she was given this material, and she said, "Okay, I'm okay. Whatever this is, I may not like it, but I'm going to do it." And so she began to take down through a process of what she has called inner dictation. There's somewhere a tape around with her voice that I think the Foundation for Inner Peace, they are the initial, the one who initially published the Course in Miracles, where she is actually explaining how that worked. It was like a form of what she called inner dictation, that was, not a process of words, but it was like, yet at the same time, it was a form of understanding what she was saying. She was taking it down. She took it down in a stenography notebooks, and she took what she wrote down to the office where she was working, and Bill Thetford would type out what she had written, and then she would read it back to him, and this is the way it would sort of happen for a period of 7 years, actually. And it was, Bill Thetford was actually helping her to keep on track, and, keeping encouraging him to do it. One of the incredible things about the whole process, you might say, is that she, according to her own story, she was able to stop the dictation at a dime and pick it up exactly where she left off. She could say, well, I'm sorry, I have to cook, or I have to eat, or I have to do something else, or I have to go to the shop. And it would just stop. And then when she was ready again, she would pick it up.
Right,
and it was her.
She was, yeah.
It was amazing. And so it was her willingness, although she was reluctant at every juncture, and the material, there was, I think, no point that she actually agreed with anything. And I think that made her probably the perfect scribe, because I believe, as Jesus told her, he said, listen, it doesn't really matter whether you accept it. I know that you will do it, and that you will perform your role as a scribe for this material to come into the world.
She sounds like the ultimate conduit, so to speak. And
yes,
I think because she has the clinical background, that makes her the perfect person to do that. Because to me, it solidifies the fact that you've got this person during a time where metaphysical practices are really not taken seriously, or you'd be accused of maybe having some mental issues if you had told somebody that Jesus Christ is speaking through me and I'm transcribing it. I think in today's world, we can see that maybe with it's way more acceptable nowadays. You've got Esther and Jerry Hicks through Abraham. So I feel like Helen kind of carved the way for mediums and people that can work with ascended masters and metaphysical entities that want to get messages through. So I think that's very strong and very poignant. And I think that had that happened to me, I probably would have had the same skepticism, even though I'm a metaphysical practitioner, because when you first start hearing messages from, say, the other side or from a different dimension, it can really, kind of knock you off your pedestal, so to speak, like, who is this and why are you talking to me? And
right.
So I think that's great. Well, we are going to continue our conversation with Wolter Van Verschuer in a second segment here on the Spirit Anchor YouTube video series and the Anchor.fm podcast series. So stay tuned and we'll be right back.